Buenas. Bueno, ahora estaba haciendo mi ebook. Bueno, estoy todavía trabajando en eso, haciendo unos memitos. Pero me salió la notificación, todavía nunca lo he visto a este video. Me salió este video de otra persona que sí o sí tienen que seguir del mundo del café, el señor Lance Hedrick, que es un ídolo del café. Salió campeón mundial de latte art y entrenó a la última subcampeona mundial de barismo y campeona de barismo de Estados Unidos. Así que es un crack, tiene un contenido espectacular en YouTube sobre café, así que sí o sí tienen que ir a seguirlo. Cuando vi este título que decía la temperatura para hacer café realmente interesa, y entonces yo quedé así como ¿what? Y encima el thumbnail dice como estaba equivocado. Ni lo vi, pero ya digo, bueno, esto está interesantísimo para reaccionar. Acortamos muy brevemente qué es lo que sé yo hasta ahora de temperatura, que nosotros tenemos distintas temperaturas para hacer café, ¿verdad? Tenemos todo el espectro de temperaturas. A cada temperatura se disuelven, son solubles distintas cosas, distintas partes de la materia del café, digamos. Generalmente, por lo que tengo entendido hasta ahora, bueno, vos tenés un café, un tostado más oscuro, y entonces vas a utilizar menos temperatura para hacerlo porque vas a tener un café más soluble. Cuando está más tostado, el café se vuelve más soluble, es decir, es más fácil sacarle el sabor. Y cuando tenés un tostado claro, necesitas toda la temperatura posible. ¿Por qué? Porque ese café es menos soluble. O sea, es más denso, no está tan frágil por haberse tostado menos tiempo. Y entonces vos necesitas toda la temperatura posible para poder disolver las cosas que dan sabor, digamos. Así que eso es lo que yo sé hasta ahora, pero seguramente, bueno, sabe muchísimo más Lance y tiene, como verán aquí, varias cosas para probar. Así que si él dice que está equivocado, seguramente tiene cosas nuevas para mostrarnos, así que quería que lo veamos juntos. Vamos a verlo.
What's up everyone, Lance Hedrick here, and today we're going to take a look at brewing temperatures.
La temperatura ahí. Buen B-roll. Buen B-roll. Ahí dice, temperatura de agua, el TDS, que es el total de sólidos disueltos. Un análisis que se hace con un aparatito que se llama refractómetro, que vos lo que vas a hacer con la refracción de la luz es calcular cuántos sólidos solubles, o sea, cuántas cosas tiene un cierto líquido.
Now, I've been working professionally in coffee for almost a decade, and in that time I've learned quite a bit of things about coffee, but how often I push back against what I learn is probably not as often as it should be.
Bueno, eso es algo que está bueno, o sea, constantemente seguir reaprendiendo y tratando de poner en duda lo que uno supuestamente ya sabe. Es la única manera de avanzar, ¿no? En todo en la vida, pero en café también.
There are a lot of things that we're now calling into question that have been accepted as truth for so long. For instance, in the past, people would tamp, then they'd tap the side of their portafilter and tamp again. We now know that's not a great thing to do. And there are a lot of other things that are conventional things that have been taught.
Bueno, por las dudas, si alguien está diciendo, ¿cómo que no se golpea el costado cuando tampeas el costado del portafiltro? Si vos llegás a hacer eso, una que vas a dañar tu tamper, otra que vas a dañar tu portafiltro, pero además lo que estás haciendo seguramente es despegar la pastilla de los bordes y va a haber una canalización tremenda ahí. Si quieren que hable sobre canalización, sí lo hablé un poco en el video de la moca, pero... y también en el video de Espresso. Voy a dejar los links ahí. Creo que es aquí, ¿no? Sí, no. Bueno, si quieren que hable específicamente en un video sobre canalización, podemos hacerlo, lo dejan en comentarios.
that we're calling into question. Now, I've been doing this more and more recently, this idea of calling into question certain things, certain monolithic structures throughout the past that have been accepted without being questioned. Now, one of these rules that I've never really called into question revolves around the idea of water temperature and its effect on extraction. Now, what I was taught years ago and what I've been teaching is that the higher the water temperature, the higher the potential of extraction.
Durísimo, porque yo también digo eso de lo que uno aprende y en algunas pruebas prácticas se da, pero bueno, vamos a seguir viendo.
But is this true? Is there proof? So what we're going to do today is brew the same coffee at 4 different brew temperatures. I'm going to take a coffee with the same recipe and brew it at 100 degrees Celsius, 95, 90, and 85. And I'm going to note the extraction yield of each one, as well as do a blind tasting. And we'll see what the effects truly are. Now today I'll be using a pretty lightly roasted coffee by my friend Ben at Manhattan. This is a washed coffee, and so it's one that normally I would probably just throw my kettle at boiling for in order to ensure that I have really nice extraction. But today, I'm going to do it at those 4 different temperatures, and we'll see which one I prefer on the table. And we'll also see what those extraction yields are to see just how much temperature matters in extraction.
Hasta ahora, supongo que el video irá por decir como que no necesariamente se extrae, o sea, es mejor siempre tener mayor temperatura, sino que, bueno, uno extrae cosas diferentes a diferentes temperaturas. No sé. Ricky quería adivinar antes de ver el video, pero bueno, sigamos.
Because out of the different variables of extraction, it really helps to understand how each one affects the final cup, whether it's grind size or ratio or water quality, water temperature. There's a whole slew of different variables to take into consideration. So if we can make this a little bit easier, you can have a little bit understanding of what is actually going on with changing temperatures. Maybe it'll help you make a more delicious cup. So, I've got water heated up. I'm gonna go ahead and get brewing and I'll get it back to you in a jiffy. Oh, you're back. How are you all doing? I just got done brewing, got all the refractions done, and now I'm just stirring a couple of these to make sure they're all at the same temperature. When doing this test, you wanna make sure that they're all at the same drinking temperature. Otherwise, something cooler could maybe have more perceived acidity than something else, and it could skew kind of your tasting. So I'm getting all of these right around the same temperature, within a degree.
Bueno, el que no sepa, todo nuestro sistema gustativo, digámoslo de alguna manera, o sea, tanto el olfato, el aroma, como la gustación, o sea, nuestra boca, tiende a ser más efectivo a temperatura corporal. Entonces, por eso es lo que estaba hablando. Si nosotros tenemos algo muy caliente o muy frío, normalmente no somos tan buenos para distinguir los sabores como cuando está a nuestra temperatura.
1 degree centigrade, which they are now at. Well, let me just make sure. Yeah, this one could be stirred a couple more times. So I want them to be all within a degree centigrade, and then because as I cut, they're going to quickly lose temp. But yeah, so I was talking with PhD chemist Samo Smirke, and was asking him what he thought about this idea of water temperature affecting extraction. And he said that in an unpublished study that he did on espresso, that panelists were able to tell the difference between espresso brewed at 96 and espresso brewed at 90, but there was no correlation between them being able to figure out between 90 and 93. And he was saying that the TDS was virtually identical on these different shots, and that maybe what's going on is the longer something is extracting, or the higher temperature something is extracting, some of those bitter compounds can come out. So potentially at really high temperatures, there might be more bitterness that can accompany the cup profile. And so I'm curious about that, as that's not something I think I've experienced in the past, so I've not done any rigorous testing. So today I'm going to look especially for bitterness. I'm going to see if there's under extraction, because that's something that is often preached, that I myself have preached, so I have to be humble here. If you're brewing with too low of temperatures, so we're going to look for sour, imbalance, bitterness, drying, or if there's any like saltiness from under extraction. So I'm going to go through and have that in mind. I'm going to have Hugo come on and switch these up for me. so that I can do this blindly, and then we'll taste and we'll see what happens.
Normalmente ahí habló de subextracción, sobreextracción, o sea, hay una extracción óptima en la que va a estar equilibrada la taza, o sea, donde el café va a brillar a su máximo potencial. Cuando vos extraes más que eso, o sea, sacás más sabor, más componentes más sólidos solubles, digamos, del café, podés llegar a experimentar lo que nosotros llamamos sobreextracción, o sea, un poco de astringencia, quizá sabores más amargos, lo que le llaman el café quemado. Y cuando extraes de menos, es más débil, seguramente va a tener sabor, acidez desequilibrada, algún componente como salado y ese tipo de cosas. Si es que hay cualquier parte del video que no entiendan, que capaz que yo estoy tratando de cazar, por ahí cosas que pueden llegar a ser muy avanzadas, pero cualquier cosa, lo escriben en los comentarios. Voy a dejar el link también del video, así lo ven sin que esté yo comentando y frenando a cada rato.
Oh, are you done yet? Thank you. So for those of you who might have misophonia or don't like the sound of slurping, you can skip to the next time cue below to see the results. But just so you all do know, I refracted all of these, and they were all within 4/100ths of a percentage of each other. So at the highest, hottest temperature was 138. The coolest temperature was a 1.4, and the middle two are 1.41s. Now that discrepancy is just brewer inconsistency, I'm sure. There's nothing to be read into that. It's inconsequential statistically. So I would not think about that. That just shows that there was not an increase or decrease with varying temperatures. They all had roughly the same extraction yield. And I'm sure if I did a French press or something, it'd be even more exact. But I think this is an easier taste test to do than a muddy French press. So we're going to do this right here. And let's get going. Okay. So I am tasting. So let me explain why I put them in this order right now. Off the initial few passes, these first two arguably are a little more bitter, whereas these two don't have that bitterness, but they also arguably are a little bit more muted, which is interesting. Because based off of what Dr. Smirke was saying, hotter temp might bring in bitter compounds or can mute aroma. However, these two, specifically this one, might be the most vibrant, though there is more bitterness. Okay.
Para el que se pregunte por qué está todo el tiempo cuando uno cata, mucho de lo que nosotros llamamos sabor es una combinación de aroma y gustación. Entonces nosotros no solamente percibimos el aroma con la nariz, la parte ortonasal, o sea la parte de afuera, sino también con la parte retronasal, que es cuando las moléculas, digamos, aromáticas pasan por la parte de adentro cuando nosotros comemos, digamos. Y la parte olfativa es la gran mayoría, más o menos entre el 75% y el 95% de lo que nosotros le llamamos gusto. Entonces, por eso está sorbiendo para atomizar todo en la boca y además hacer partícipe esa parte retronasal para saber más acabadamente y con mayor precisión, bueno, las diferencias de gustos entre las tazas estas.
I'm going to take a few more sips just to ensure I like my where I've put it, but I'm thinking higher temp down to lower temp based off of this idea of higher temp could maybe cause more bitter compounds to come through. Lower temp might not extract some of the compounds that are needed in longer duration or higher temperatures. To further go off the conversation I had with Dr. Smirke, what you have is in the extraction process, these acids that come out are very easy to extract. You don't need much temperature. In fact, cold brew can extract them. The perceived acidity might be way different though based off of other compounds that are coming out during that long extraction period. More temperature can potentially get out more faster, but those acids that really contribute to the nuance and the flavor, the character of the coffee, seem to come out very easily regardless of temperature. And once you get up to these really high temperatures, maybe over 80, 85, you're really seeing a more stabilized environment for extraction. So all of them are about the same exact extraction yield. It might depend on what the compounds making up that extraction yield are. Now, one more pass. This one's definitely the most bitter. It's definitely the second most bitter. The question is between these two. Which is more interesting? These are these are much more different. These are very difficult to tell apart. So I'm gonna go ahead and just reveal. I do think I see if what Dr. Smirke was telling me is right and I understood correctly, I would assume because these have the higher bitterness, that they might be the highest temperature, whereas these have the lowest. Now, what's interesting, though, is something else he said was about the aroma, and I feel like the aroma is higher in these based off of how it's interacting with my palate, and more muted in these two. And if that's correct, this would be 8590, the 95-100. But my favorite brew would be this 95. So let's go ahead and see. Granted, the differences are very slight, and I'm going to have Hugo come on in a second, and he's going to taste it as well, so that we have a second opinion. But let's go ahead and check these out. So down here we have number 5. So this was actually 90. So I'm guessing this is 6. Yep, this is 6. So these are the two hottest. This one actually was the hottest. My favorite was the hottest. Yep, and that leaves 95 right there. All right, so I'm going to switch these up for Hugo to come on, and he will do a little taste test as well. So close your eyes. All right, so he's gonna come on, and he's gonna cup while I look over his shoulder. We'll look for whatever you want to look for. So what are you thinking? What'd you push that one up for? All right, this is final submission. Let's see what Hugo got. So he said least vibrant, most vibrant. So I guess worst, best kind of scenario. Best for him was number 2, so 95. Second best was number 6, then number 5, and then the hottest he had is the worst. Well, there you go, folks. This is not a rigorous scientific method going on here. This is a one-off, but just to show you that the temperature is not as easy as perhaps I have let it off to be in previous videos, which is hard for me to say because I don't like being wrong, but it seems that there's a lot to play with. And so there are differences in our taste preferences. There's differences in your taste preferences. So I would say, I know that I've said in the past, if you're doing light roast, go to a boiling. If you're doing medium, go to like 95, whatever it might be. Throw that out the window. Disregard that and just do a few brews side by side at wildly different temperatures and see which one that you prefer out of those, and then kind of get closer and closer to what might taste the best for you. Now, as I was saying in this...
What? Bueno, la verdad que lo que saco de conclusión por ahora de este video, como les digo, nunca lo había visto, pero es que, bueno, claramente las extracciones eran las mismas o muy similares, pero, lo que pasa es que cuando vos estás viendo extracción, es un refractómetro que te va a tirar cuántas partículas, o sea, cuántas cosas hay. Y eso significa nada, o sea, cuántas cosas sacaste del café. Ahora, ¿qué cosas son? No te dice nada respecto a eso, es decir, en cuanto a sabor y en cuanto a preferencia, no tiene nada para decir, digamos. Obviamente tampoco es un método científico porque estábamos hablando, o sea, primero que lo hizo en una B60 y lo hizo él mismo, digamos, o sea, manualmente, por más de que sea un barista hiper entrenado y súper consagrado y todo, es humano, digamos. Entonces tampoco es que es científico y tampoco que son condiciones de laboratorio, digamos. Entonces tampoco es que sacaría una conclusión más allá de decir, bueno, probar realmente, o sea, no como que te quedé, no, tengo que utilizar esta temperatura y a la mierda, porque teóricamente se supone que es así, sino animarse a probar distintas temperaturas con distintos cafés y ver cuál es la que uno prefiere en base a su gusto propio.
Study that is unpublished that Smirke was part of, he said that people were not able to tell the difference between a 93 and 90 degree shot, but they could between 96 and 90, which is reflective of what my results were. I could tell the difference between the two highs and the two lows, but when it came to differentiating those, it was obviously much harder because I got them both switched, I got them both swapped. So just keep that in mind. Water temperature is not as cut and dry as I originally thought. I would have assumed these would have all been at different extraction yields, but they were all essentially identical. And so I hope this was helpful. I hope it helps you break more boundaries. Everything in coffee is very subjective, very personal. Find out what you enjoy and go after that, regardless of what idiots like me on YouTube say. Do what you like. That is what matters, is your enjoyment of your coffee. So thank you so much for watching, for spending this time with me. It's always a pleasure. I really appreciate all the support you all have given me. Please take the time to hit that subscribe button, the like button if you enjoy my videos. If you're still here, thank you very much. If you made it this far, comment below. Hugo is the best cameraman. And thank you very much. Have a lovely day and brew something tasty. Cheers.
Bueno, se tienen que suscribir aquí, sí o sí. Obviamente también se tienen que suscribir a mi canal, sí, porque vamos a seguir haciendo este tipo de reacciones a contenidos interesantes como este. Y bueno, ya saben, todas las dudas ahí en los comentarios, y también me avisan qué les gustaría ver, qué les gustaría seguir viendo. Nos vemos. Adiós.